welcome back to another video recap from us at the State News Football Writers. I'm Joe. Dandron, Eli McKown's here with me. So Michigan State falls to number 4 Ohio State, 52-12. And weird game, and it was kind of up in the air. I feel like midweek of whether or not they were even going to play. Ohio State had their game previously canceled, but they play. Ohio State absolutely rolls Michigan State. It's never really close, 28-0 at half, 35-0, and maybe in the first half at some points. There's really not a whole lot you can take away from it. Rocky Lombardi gets hurt. Not necessarily sure on the extent or what the injury is, but Peyton Thorne comes in and replaces him, plays pretty well, leads a pair of scoring drives, a touchdown and a field goal. Michigan State still gets beat by 40. So not a whole lot of positives if you're Michigan State. Frankly, it's hard to find even one in some ways, other than maybe that Thorne looked pretty good at times. But Eli, and I want to pose this question to you to kind of get started here. I guess was there any positives in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Thorne had his moments. I think he started the game 11 for 11. He has that deep shot to Reed. He's making plays with his legs. Starts out really well, but then after that, it kind of dipped down a bit. And maybe that's because he's trying to make some plays and try to force some things there. Maybe that's just young quarterback things against what is, frankly, a very, 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 very talented Ohio State team. Outside of that, I think this game was the ultimate wake-up call after that Northwestern game a little bit. I think there was a bit of a rise in expectations or a rise in what we thought this team was after that Northwestern game. The gap between Northwestern and Ohio State is not really close either, especially in terms of talent, who's on that team, all those different things. As much as Northwestern is a great team, one of the better defenses in the Big Ten, there is a big difference between those two teams, and especially on the offensive side of the ball. There was a lot made of them having 3 offensive linemen out. They had Josh Proctor out at safety. They had a bunch of their depth out. I think there was 23 total players they had out.
Yeah.
A lot of people were making a really big deal about that, but I think what we forgot to remember is that this Ohio State team is essentially an NFL team in the lower, in college football. I mean, this team continuously has the most talent in the league, and it's not really close. Like, there are guys that are beneath their starters were probably 4 and 5 star recruits before. And, frankly, Michigan State doesn't have a lot of those. And when you combine that with Ohio State and what the program is, what the coaching staff is, those different things, it's a large gap to overcome if you're Michigan State, especially when your offense cannot move the ball whatsoever. There were just not a lot of great things to talk about. But I think this was more of Ohio State being on another level from the rest of the Big Ten, and Michigan State being at a point where they're still trying to put together their roster. They're still trying to get better in recruiting and all those different things. I mean, that's the difference in the game. I think that was quite obvious on pretty much at every standpoint.
But for me, Michigan State's defense against Northwestern, that is an offense that is nowhere near what we saw from Ohio State and what people have seen from Ohio State all season. Justin Fields really only looked bad against Indiana, I would say, and he didn't really even look that bad. They still scored 50 points. And that's the thing for me. This Ohio State offense is quite possibly the best in the country. I think it's hard to tell. Clemson, obviously. Alabama, I would say, is probably the best team in the country. But I do think Ohio State's offense is up there with those two. And in Notre Dame, obviously, is another one. But, the running game for Ohio State, it almost seemed like there wasn't a game plan for Justin Fields being able to run the football, which made no sense because – he's a dual threat quarterback. He's a guy who his entire career in college has been able to move outside of the pocket. And that was incredible to me that there was almost a total lack of an idea like, oh, we need to have a spy on this guy in the whole game. Because most teams are going to game plan for Fields and put a spy on him in the whole game because, the dude had 104 rushing yards. The guy is consistently great running the football. Trey Sermon had a great game too. In general, the Ohio State offensive line just dominated. And to me, I just don't understand. To me, it's glaring that there's a talent gap between Michigan State and Ohio State right now. And Mel Tucker saw that. How frustrated was he after the game, right? I wanted, to talk about that too. Mel Tucker very, very clearly had a message for the football program after the game.
Yeah, and just to add on to your last point too, I mean, we've seen the Michigan State defense in the past control some of those running quarterbacks of Ohio State. You think of Miller, you think of some of the ones in the past in Big Ten title games, stuff like that. They've been able to control them when they wanted to. It's just in this game, that talent discrepancy is that big right now. I mean, I don't think, Tucker and the players talked about it. They said, like, yeah, we knew he could run the ball. It's just we couldn't get in the right spots. We couldn't do the right things. And Tucker talked about that too. He goes, I don't understand how we couldn't get in front. We knew that was coming. It was like, but we couldn't stop it. But yeah, I mean, Tucker, that was probably the most animated I've seen him after a game. He was very blunt about it. He was like, I didn't see any positives outside of maybe them trying to fight. And I think that is just the glaring thing of him coming in and realizing, that the talent level and what they have here and what he wants in his team is just not quite there yet. I would imagine coming into this offseason, regardless what happens in this last game against Penn State, regardless if they end up playing this Big Ten add-on game, whether they still do that or whatever, on the 19th, and all that, whether they do that, I would imagine in the offseason, Tucker is just all over the transfer portal. He's going to be on top of that 100%. He's going to continue to recruit and try to build his roster the way he wants it. Because we've seen with the guys that he's brought in that, like, the ones that were maybe his recruits by whatever here at the end. You look at Jordan Simmons, Angelo Gross is a little bit of that as well. Like, those are guys that are a little more his guys than maybe D'Antonio's guys, even though that was D'Antonio's last recruiting class. They've come in and played right away, those guys that he's brought in. So I would imagine next year we see a lot more of that. He goes to the transfer portal, gets the guys that he wants, gets his guys recruiting, and really changes who's in this starting lineup next year moving forward, and hopefully what will be a more normal year.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. I mean, it's obvious that he can recruit talent, in my opinion. He's already been able to recruit better talent really at a more consistent level from places D'Antonio wasn't doing that. I mean, he got from, the 4-star from Oak Park. He's got other 4-stars already really in his first year. I think that he's a guy, being at a power program like this, I think he can recruit. And I want to touch on this too. Peyton Thorne played pretty well in the second half of that game when he did come in. I thought he's incredibly more mobile in the pocket. Like, I mean, he can move outside and he can make throws. And his connection with Jaden Reed really is probably going to be key, I think, to the offense the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it pretty early when he came in. There was a jump start. He comes in at they have the last drive of the first half. They move past midfield. He gets stripped on a fumble. Things happen. I mean, and that's the.
You just got to go down. You just got to go down. You can't try to get the extra yards.
And then you look at after that. I mean, he goes 11 for 11. He throws that pick, but I think as a young quarterback there at the end, he talked to the media about it after. He goes, I really just wanted to keep fighting. I wasn't worried about the score. I was just worried about going down and scoring. I have to wonder, in those last minute situations, is he trying to force a little bit too much? They get the fumble recovery against Ohio State. I believe it was 35-7 at this point, and they get a fumble recovery, and they're inside Ohio State territory. On the next play, he throws an interception just outside of Naylor's hands.
Yeah, which is a great play by Shaun Wade to pick that ball off.
That too, yeah. And that ball's just outside of Naylor's reach. Naylor maybe could have gotten to it. Shaun Wade makes a nice play. He's got some talent. Can he be the guy moving forward for his next few years? I don't know. That's something we'll have to find out. But I think he's shown some good things. It'll be interesting to see his development this offseason, because this year really is more of a development year. I mean, Tucker's talked about it. He goes, we need to play football so we can get better and find out what I have on this team. I think Tucker, like we said, is going to be aggressive, try to fill holes, and really just try to build this program up from there and try to fill it out so you can be competitive now. Because he said it. He goes, I'm not playing the waiting game. I'm not going to just do this development thing for these next 2 years on the roster, just recruit. I want to win now. He's made it pretty clear. Like, he's going to go in the transfer portal and he's going to go get guys.
Yep. And I think that is a testament to Tucker's, just drive. And I mean, I understand you don't play to lose games because there's no draft in college, and that's the thing here. So I think that Mel Tucker had a very clear message for that football team. And he talked for 10 minutes and he was angry. And as many football coaches would be. But, so Michigan State coming up this weekend, playing Penn State 3:30 on Saturday. I think that game's going to be on ESPN. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for us here, kind of reaching our time. So Joe Dandron, Eli McKown, we'll have another one of these next week following the Penn State game, which is the last game of the regular season for Michigan State. So we'll see what happens from there.